going back to that time, that was early pandemic days, and everything was getting shut down, and there was so much fear, and people were starting to show the worst sides of themselves in many ways. And the way that it interacted with me and my work life was through vacation rentals. And suddenly this public perception that because I was operating a short-term rental, that I was not following any of the guidance, any of the requirements that were being pushed out through, through our governments, our community centers, et cetera, to keep everybody safe and informed during this time. And the rumors and the misconceptions were just swirling everywhere, in the media, in our local community forums and discussions amongst neighbors. And it just hit a nerve with me that I couldn't not address having all of these false assumptions being made about me and others just like me during a time when we were all trying so hard to do our best. So I wrote an op-ed.
How much would you say of that fear was people being terrified of something that they didn't understand?
100%. I think we still encounter that in this industry all the time. We can get to that later, but what really sparked this original opinion piece was this kind of accusation that vacation rentals were not following the basic rules. And so I wrote this piece. I think I titled it "Why Short-Term Rentals Aren't That Bad."
Which is such a great title. So, Julie.
And I very, very, very kind of logically laid out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 some reasons why short-term rentals aren't that bad. And I can't believe anybody read it, but they did. Nobody wanted to publish it, actually. It took me about 20 newspapers until I found the Bennington Banner, which is not anywhere near my own community at all. And
why do you think no one wanted to publish it?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't tell you that. I got a lot of no's because in general, papers weren't publishing op-eds as a principle. In Vermont, where I live, and the communities that I was trying to reach, we have very small local news rooms and newspapers that are run by volunteers, and I don't know.
And can you share what your thought process is when you decide to put the pen to paper and put some thoughts down to share? Because I think a lot of people in our community who are professionals, who are doing their absolute best, they kind of know what they're talking about. And any chance they get in person, they will stand up for the best of what our industry has to offer. But they don't often make this way, as you did, into the press, let's say. So what was that process like?
Well, I've always been a writer, and I've always been more of a writer than a speaker. I need that time with pen and paper to consider my word choice, to consider how I want to present my thoughts or my argument or my justifications for things. It's not something that comes easily to me on the spot. And so I've just always gone to writing as a way to really flesh out what I'm really feeling and thinking. So for me, that's just a go-to. I was that kid that was always journaling and writing things, writing stories and getting all of my feelings on paper. But for me, and growing up, I've always loved writing. I've worked professionally as a writer. I've taken writing courses. So I do have some kind of education and background to help me with the structure side and of writing and the kind of tapping into those publication resources. But yeah.
One of the things I've noticed is, creatively speaking, expression takes practice for nobody other than oneself. And figuring out what you like, what sounds good, what rolls off the tongue, what achieves the outcome that you're looking for and what doesn't, that's a real trial and error process. And it doesn't happen overnight by any means. Like, even if you put together a message that you'd like to share with the newspaper, and then the next day you come back to it and you read it out loud and you're like, this sounds terrible, right? That's a learning process that teaches us along the way. And it's something that I think a lot of people tend to get blocked at just the first step.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me too, I am so motivated to write when I feel like I've been wronged. And this is really where this op-ed came from, was a place of feeling that I was being accused of doing something wrong and not following the rules. And I just needed to tell people that wasn't true. And it takes time. It takes time to write. It takes revision. What I love about being able to write something down is getting other people's opinions and review before you share it. Because that just helps you craft a more clear, concise, and well thought out position. Because there are always different opinions, always different perspectives, questions that people have, or things that they don't understand that, maybe we understand too much from being too close, that we don't even realize that that's something we have to explain. So I don't know, I love the process of being able to communicate through writing and through opinion pieces. It's my go-to.
I'm Matt Landau, and this is Unlocked, Season 12, Unlimited Edition, the case for more creativity in business. And how creative and interesting is Julie Marks? Julie's the co-owner of Homestead Hospitality, a vacation rental experience in Jericho, Vermont. She's also the founder and executive director of Vistra, the Vermont Short-Term Rental Alliance. Julie's interview is one of my favorite vacation rental interviews to date. And it's certainly my favorite interview about advocacy, which is arguably the biggest threat to our industry, unfair regulation, that gets the least amount of press, the least amount of awareness, and ultimately could sink the most of our businesses. And Julie is first and foremost an advocate, but she's also just a generous soul. And she loves helping people, and she loves connecting people. And eventually, if you are someone who's generous with your time and your heart, you need to draw boundaries, otherwise things get unsustainable. And this interview is all about how to reevaluate those priorities in your life on a regular basis. It goes way deeper than running a vacation rental business or vacation rental regulation. This is about being a better, more balanced human. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. OwnerRez is a property management software which, if you're not familiar with the technology stack in this industry, a property management software is the foundation of everything. It's like the backbone that you want to build on. I had the chance to get to know the OwnerRez team at the end of last year. They hosted their company retreat in the Dominican Republic. And what was pretty unique to me was how important the business value of honesty was, both for each of the individual teammates, but also for the business as a whole. And honesty can take a lot of different forms, many of which you'll hear in the interview with Julie. Honesty with oneself, honesty with one's partners, with one's team, honesty with outsiders, perhaps those who you disagree with. This is a business value at the very top of the list within the team at OwnerRez, and it's something I think earns trust with vacation rental owners and managers who are in the business of connection. So if you'd like to give them a try, head over to their website, ownerrez.com, and do a demo. Ask them your honest questions and let them know you heard about it on the podcast. That'll earn you a special discount if you sign up. That's ownerrez.com. Now let's get back to Julie.
Well, I would certainly be lying if I said I was fearless or doubtless, but I definitely have always had some level of confidence in my ability to get what I want, for lack of a better phrase. When I figure out what it is that I want to do with my life, whether it's travel to a certain place or start this kind of business, I just kind of focus in on that and don't stop until it's done. I've always operated from a place of confidence, I guess, where I know that whatever I get myself into, I know that I can get myself out of it as well. And so that's always helped me just dive right in. And if it doesn't work out,
and
I can
what
rescue
are those
myself
feelings
as
that
well.
you should be feeling when you really want something? Because a lot of people, myself included, find themselves at times like not sure what they want. What have you found works for you?
I think not knowing what you want is, for me, one of the scariest feelings that I could have. And I do not enjoy those periods of my life where I don't know what I want. I think part of the reason why I went on the Keystone retreat and really needed that experience at that point in time is I think I was in that position. I was in that phase of I had started a few things, but I wasn't really sure or clear about if I still wanted them or where I wanted them to go. For me, that journey of understanding what it is that you want, what I want, and what's going to be my next priority, requires a lot of self-care and time. Like, just take the time, make the time to allow myself to think about it and to, put yourself in a different environment physically and just think and talk it through and, I don't know, see what comes. It's people ask you questions that can be really helpful. When somebody asks you, what do you want, this or that, you have to what you want in your gut. You do. It's just whether or not you can really hone in on what your gut is telling you and listen to it.
I'm fascinated by that lately. Intuition, in a way, really, and it really is a skill that I don't think I've really been aware of in myself, at least in my head. Like, maybe my body would feel something and I would do something because of that, but intellectual, trying to like analyze it, it was never on my radar. And you arrived at the Keystone Retreat with two worlds that you were trying to figure out how to manage, which to prioritize, perhaps how to incorporate them better. And I want to get to that point, but I would like to continue sharing your story because I think it helps to set the context. You enter into this vacation rental world, this hospitality world, and is interacting with guests and cleaning poop off of toilets exactly what you had imagined?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I think one of the things that I love so much instantly about the hospitality side was just the immense pleasure I received from people coming to my home, seeing what we had created, and just falling in love with it, and telling me, and just, it made me feel so lucky and appreciative of what I have every day. That where I lived was where people wanted to come and pay to experience. And I just, everything else, cleaning poop off toilets is, not the memorable part of the whole experience, so it's worth it. When I turned to vacation rentals, it was so simple and it was so obvious, like what the objective is and what the purpose is, and what's good enough and what's not good enough. And it just really simplified my life in a way that just felt like that's what I needed at this time. I needed something that was completely in my control, that was completely of my own making, and something that was appreciated by those who got to experience it. I felt so dependent, on other people and on other processes and other systems, in order for me to get what I need. And that really scared me. And now I know how a house works. And so when I know how it works and it breaks, I can figure out how to fix it. I know where food comes from. So when I need food, I know how to grow it. I know how to store it and save it and keep it. And I can do that without relying on anybody else. And I just think there's so much power in knowing how to take care of oneself, that, I don't know, it's really fundamental to me, the relationship to a property, to our land that the property sits on, the shelter that it provides. It's, a house is a living thing in a way, all these mechanisms and everything. And it's, I don't know, it's absolutely critical for us to understand how to manage that.
I said the future, and I think a better word is visionary for me when I hear you describing that sort of self-sustaining vision for yourself, because this is how you live and this is also how you do business. How early on in building this business did you have that clear vision of what you wanted it to be?
Honestly, I didn't really buy into the vacation rental operation as a business strategy until I was probably a couple of years into it. I was still trying to use my degree. I was trying to start a consulting company of my own. I was trying to write. So I was kind of using the opportunity of renting properties to kind of bankroll me while I was pursuing another interest. And I guess that goes back to finding yourself in a place where, I don't know, that just comes more easily. I was trying to provide a product to people through my, wannabe environmental health consulting business. But nobody wanted that. Nobody wanted that product. But at the same time, I was offering this vacation rental product that just came so easily, and everybody seemed to want it without me even trying very hard. So I think it's observing those two different paths and choosing the one that comes easier. It might not be that it's actually easier. It just was easier for me. And I might be a little bit more inclined to this path versus another one that I thought, I wanted. But I think it just chose me.
After the pandemic, certainly I think everybody in the industry experienced this heightened, almost prohibitively difficult series of requirements to run the business. Like when I first started vacation rentals, it was so easy. And we were the only ones in town, and we did everything wrong, and we had terrible technology, and we still did just fine. But as the industry has grown, the popularity has grown, it's gotten more mainstream, then the pandemic, all of these mounting requirements of the job start getting insurmountable in a lot of ways. The most difficult of which has to be regulation. So as a small operator, at what point do you say, I'm going to actually participate in the local regulatory efforts? Because that is not a choice that many people make.
Well, Matt, I will tell you when this happened. So, first, they accused me of not following the rules. So I write the op-ed. Then, my town, the city in which I was operating one short-term rental, along with some long-term rental units as well, started to develop some short-term rental regulations. And by we, I refer to the eventual community of short-term rental hosts that emerged out of these discussions in City Hall. We fought them for 2.5 years through the pandemic, listening to their asinine, dataless claims about why shutting us down was going to do good things for the city, for them. And we endured just years of being treated like villains, like greedy investors, like heartless people who just had no interest in the common good. And eventually,
are you angry because of that? Is that making you angry? Is that what drives this action?
Yes, it made me angry. It made me so angry that after 2.5 years of trying to convince people of the good of what would be reasonable in terms of a regulation, how we actually do operate as a business, they ignored everything and they essentially shut us down in a lot of ways. And then, so
even more angry.
so even more angry. But then when you have built yourself a very lovely, self-sustaining business that gives you the lifestyle that you hope to, live and enjoy, gets shut down by your city, and then a state legislator comes along and says, hey, maybe we should shut these businesses down all across the state. That is the straw that gets a person like me to stay up till 2 a.m. creating a website to bring people together and say, hell no. As much as I love the vacation rental industry, before I got involved in advocacy and before I started the Vermont Short-Term Rental Alliance, I was pretty lonely. It's a lonely job. And I was self-managing. I was doing all my own cleaning, landscaping, guest communications, everything. So it was just me. And I think what really, what kept me going with advocacy, once I got over my initial motivating anger prompt was then I started to meet people. I started to build this community of hundreds of people who were just like me, doing the exact same thing and feeling the exact same way. And I started to develop all these amazing friendships. And I just wasn't lonely, and suddenly there were so many people out there that I never knew existed. And now we were all together and trying to solve the same problem, not individually, but as one, and supporting each other. And that has just been an incredible gift, really. And so, yeah, for 2 years, I did the work of a full-time executive director for nothing. I volunteered my time, my personal resources, everything, and was really, at that point, motivated by the people who were supporting me. And, so there came a point where I was starting to neglect my work and my obligations that actually provided me with the roof over my head, because I was focused so much on Vistra and all of these advocacy efforts that did not, provide for me and my household. So, it's, I think everybody, especially, people who are in a partnership or have a family, have these conversations from time to time. Like, is this really what's best for all of us? And is this sustainable, both for, your households financially, for your own mental well-being, for your relationships that you have, whether they're, your partner, your romantic partner, or family members or friends. And so, yeah, I had to do a little bit of a reevaluation to figure out how I could continue to work with Vistra, but also get what I needed in terms of, having a life, having a personal life, and also providing for the life that I'm living.
The reevaluating, I think, is one of those skills that people are not necessarily good at naturally. It does take some practice, but is increasingly powerful as all this change happens. Perhaps you want to shift into a more independent, creative type of living. You need to be able to take that step back and reevaluate. Is this what I wanted, or has this strayed? And you said, like, is this sustainable? Conversely, is this toxic? Is this going to like destroy me?
Right. Absolutely.
And is there any light at the end of this tunnel? Is there any way this is going to really turn around?
Right.
And that's hard to swallow.
It is. And I'm still trying to swallow that pill. And I don't think we're there yet. Even I do try to draw some, better boundaries for myself. I think it's the way that we work nowadays. It's so easy to not have boundaries up as to kind of when you are on and off the clock. As home runners and as housing providers, sometimes you're never off the clock. You're always on if there's an emergency or if a guest or renter needs you. You have to be there. So I think that makes it additionally challenging for me as running the association to turn myself off from that at all hours of the day. So I do credit the time that I spent working in the nonprofit world to understanding how to structure, basic structure for an organization. I credit my time in science to being able to bring reason and bring data-based solutions to the table and do my research ahead of time. I credit my for-profit consumer product experience with, understanding the finances and knowing how to manage a large budget. So it's not easy, but it's not impossible either. I'm very proud to say that the association is financially healthy enough now where I am able to draw a very modest part-time salary, still doing full-time work, but it's better than zero, and it's deeply appreciated. So we are continuing to grow as an association, both in the size of our membership and well as the number of supporting business partners and sponsors that we have. So that is really exciting, and I'm hoping that we will continue to have the resources to hire additional staff, because that's really, really what's going to make or break our next big leap, is if we have the human capacity to do the work.
And if you're listening to this and you are a Vermont short-term rental stakeholder and you hear the seriousness and the thought that goes into this kind of work, step up. I mean, it's the least you can do. Step up and support, contribute, even if it's a small amount, contribute your piece to the bigger whole. That just needs to be said. It can't be said enough. It falls on deaf ears sometimes.
Well, and it's a hard thing to say. It's a question I get asked a lot of, well, what does this get me? Like, why should I bother contributing to this? What does it do for me? It's a question that I think I still struggle to answer because there's so many things that I want to say at the same time to convince people that this is really important. This is vital.
It's everything.
It's everything. But yeah, it is. That's a huge challenge. But on the other side, now with my personal business and property management, I think I've come to the realization that what I'm doing is enough for what we need right now. And so I'm I'm not pursuing any growth. I'm focused on basic maintenance and longevity. I have certainly shifted a little bit more towards the medium-term rental market, or whatever we're calling it, midterm, medium-term. And that has certainly helped with, reducing the amount of workload. I have still not hired a cleaner or a property manager. So I know that's something that I said I would do, but I still can't seem to let go of that. But yeah, and I try to take more vacations.
What's next for Julie Inc.? What's in store? What's possible?
What's possible? Anything's possible. I am really excited to get back out into the world right now. And I don't know what that will spark. I hope that I can really continue to lead Vistra and help other advocates across the country do this important work and establish these really important communities of responsible operators. Because that is, we're nowhere near where we need to be in terms of public perception and where we need to be in terms of regulation that's going to provide the consistency and the security that we all need to run a business. And that, there's so much there. We've just begun.
Is it daunting at all to think that you're stepping out into the world again and there's so much that's possible?
I think it's exciting. I think what I'm really looking forward to are opportunities to do this work from wherever I may be in the world. I think that's just an amazing part of where our society is at now, with all the technology that we have and the fact that this industry is global. Just makes a million opportunities available. So, I draw a lot of confidence and security knowing that I have a rental portfolio of my own that I can use to make a new move, whenever that new move may be.
I mentioned Julie was one of my favorite vacation rental interviews, but really this is one of my favorite interviews, full stop. Because Julie just has this balanced, real way of putting her finger on and articulating how she feels about certain things, even when she's not exactly sure. And I think that style of communication is something that we can all improve these days, especially for our industry that deals so heavily in communication and relationships. Are we able to clearly lead our partners, our teams, our industry? Are we able to lead with a clear vision of knowing what we want and the path that we have planned to get there? And when we hit setbacks, when we need to reevaluate, are we courageous in sitting down and having those difficult discussions? And can we do so with grace and style? Thanks to Julie for sharing her heart in this interview. Thanks also to our sponsor, OwnerRez, who did not share their heart on this particular interview, but puts their heart into everything that they do. And that's coming straight from their partners. This is a community of people who love the property management software they use. You can head over for a demo at ownerrez.com. You can also join teammates of OwnerRez, as well as people like Julie and me, and over 1,200 vacation rental operators in VRMB communities. We are actively collaborating under one virtual roof. That's vrmb.com/membership. Until next time.